They said, we said. This is John doing my weekly spoiler review of The Walking Dead. This one's for Season 7, Episode 5, titled The Go-Getters. Okay, so I'm doing something a little differently. As you can see, we're doing this review on the move. I work late on the nights that the show airs. Let's just try this out. It's a different setting. It's kind of fun. Whatever. Here we go. So this one was directed by Darnell Martin. I can't really tell you much about him because I didn't really do a lot of research on Darnell Martin, so I'm really sorry about that. I can say that this guy directed the shit out of this episode. I really, spoiler alert for my rating, I really enjoyed this week's episode a lot. Tonally, it was somber. It was, the music was just really good. Like, just the music fit the tones, really well. There was a lot said, in this episode without having to say things, if that makes sense. Of course it does. You guys are smart. So hats off to Darnell Martin, whoever you are. So let's dive into it. Episode starts off at the hilltop with Maggie. Spoiler alert. OBGYN says that, she had experienced trauma. Surprise, surprise, she experienced a shitload of trauma. So she had the placenta detached from the uterine wall, but, thank God, baby's okay. Outside, she's talking to Sasha, and then they go to the grave sites of Abraham and Glenn. As much of a grave site as that was, it's kind of just two little mounds of dirt, but it's the best they got. And Maggie and Sasha have a very heartfelt scene. Maggie puts the Herschel's watch on Glenn's grave, and Jesus comes in. He's a great guy. He's putting flowers on. Everyone's having a nice little moment, and then King Dick Gregory shows up and just total douchebag. You're like, you guys gotta leave. I don't care if you're pregnant. I want you out of my house. Just total dick. Don't like this guy at all. And you're not supposed to. He's a dick in the comic, and he definitely does. The actor does a great job being a dick in the show. So we have a quick Alexandria scene. Basically, it's just Rick and Aaron preparing for a run. I don't really know if anyone else is going. Doesn't really specify. Probably he's going north. Carl's pissed. Michonne's not on board. They have a nice kiss goodbye because, in this world, it could be your last at any moment. So I appreciated that. Nice scene for Rick just to get some kind of something good, So goes Enid leaving. Enid's trying to get to the hilltop. She wants to probably check in on Maggie, see how she's doing. Enid and Glenn had kind of a special connection, special bond. So, that's probably why it's hitting her pretty hard. Not as hard as it hit Glenn. No pun intended. All puns intended. All the time. That starts our Carl and Enid kind of road trip show, and it's actually pretty great. I really, Carl's been kind of a weak character on the show, and Enid's been pretty strong. I like her as much as we see her as fine. She's riding a bike down the road, trying to get to the hilltop. She gets stopped by a walker, and here comes Carl, driving like a maniac, taking out the walker very not efficiently, but it was entertaining enough, and they go forward. And we're back to the hilltop. We get some conversations with between Sasha, Maggie, Jesus, and some Gregory action. They're just kind of back and forth, trying to figure out what to do next. What's Maggie and Sasha's next move? Trying to barter something about having Maggie stay, she'll go, or she'll do extra work, whatever. It's just very imperative that Maggie stay with the only gynecologist left in the world. Freaking coolest scene, one of the coolest scenes in the show in general. Definitely the coolest scene in this episode is the night where the Saviors basically open the gates, drive in this car, this like Pinto that's like totally armored, and it's just blaring music, and the lock has a big middle finger on it, it was just super entertaining. Jesus is like Jackie Channing the shit out of some walkers. Sasha's not doing too bad either. They're taking out, the walkers are flooding in the gates, and they're just taking them out one by one. That was a great scene. And they're like, how are we going to close the gate? And then, Maggie jumps in a tractor, backs up over this whole car because they can't get this thing open. And then finally, they take care of business. That scene was incredible. I can't say enough about that. It keeps going back and forth between what's going on at the hilltop and what's going on in our road trip show with, the Carl and Enid road trip show. They're having some back and forth. Carl stumbles upon some kind of backpack. He opens it up. Then they find some like rollerblades, which is like, that scene like really like hit the hearts, like tugged on the heartstrings hard. It's just like there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. They, it shows them being happy. They get to be kids for like 2 seconds. Carl and Enid, they're just smiling, they're rollerblading, but you're thinking, it's just like, what kid lost its life? Who owned these rollerblades? It was some poor kid or poor kids that got, gobbled up. So it's just, there's a lot of nuance to that scene, and I really appreciated it. So then flashback, it's the next day. Simon shows up with the Saviors. They just come pouring in. Simon gets right up in King Dick's face, and he's just taking him to town. He's just like telling him who's boss. Against Gregory's better judgment, he has Sasha and Maggie hidden in a closet, and so Simon's strong arming the crap out of Gregory, and he's just like, anything else you want to tell me? Because you're like, you could. There's a very tension-filled scene. This is probably my least favorite scene of the show, of this episode, though. It just felt like it dragged on just a little bit. The Saviors do a good job of that bullying thing, and like I said in the last episode, where it was just like Negan grating on Rick the entire time and just kind of like showing him who's boss, and it's like, yeah, we get it, and maybe do more behind closed doors, like the Simon and Gregory scene. It was fine. It just was my least favorite scene. Gregory goes to essentially give up Maggie and Sasha, so he takes them to the closet where he thought they were, opens it up, and they're not in there, so he's like, oh shit, I gotta give him something. So he winds up giving Simon his most prized possession, which is this like really expensive scotch, or just like bottles of alcohol. And that was a pretty funny scene, because it's just a nice middle finger to Gregory for being such a douche. So Simon makes Gregory kneel to him. It's very humiliating. And Gregory's just like, yeah, this is what we have to do, and he's just like happy for it. So he's totally like kind of bought into this crappy life, because it is a life. I don't know if I can talk too bad about him, because at least he's living for now. The Saviors finally take off, and then Jesus and Sasha and Maggie all have a conversation about who should be in charge, and Jesus is like, you're not fit to lead, dude. You're just a jerk off, and you just kind of care about yourself. And so it's implying that Maggie's gonna eventually take over for the Hilltop, which, again, spoiler alert, that's kind of what happens in the comic as well. Okay, so then actually, rewind just a little bit. Enid and Carl make it to the gates of the Hilltop, and they kind of share a moment, and Carl gets a little smooch, and that was a nice scene. Good for Carl. Carl had a strong episode. I don't really care a lot for Coral. He doesn't really make a lot of good choices, and sometimes the acting is a little but he had a strong episode. He came out on top with Enid. Great on him. So Enid's in the Hilltop talking to Maggie, talking to Sasha. They have this whole like birds of prey thing going on at the Hilltop. It's like the three of them. Maggie and Enid have a touching scene. Maggie hands over the pocket watch that she got from Gregory, because his jackass like pulled it off. He like grave robbed Glenn. He's like, oh, this shouldn't be out in the rain. He's total just jerk off. I hope this guy he was like the Spencer of this show. of this episode, and I can't wait to see his comeuppance. Sasha asks Jesus if he will infiltrate the sanctuary, basically, so, you know, he finds out where Negan lives and sleeps and, you know, does all his things. So he obliges. You know, in the end scene, it's just him sneaking into the back of the car that's going straight to Negan. They had a designated truck for Negan, so he is in there. He snuck in, gives a little, you know, one last little middle finger to Gregory by drinking his scotch and pouring the rest out. Looks like he knew what his favorite brand was. That was a good scene. And then, you know, cough and, you know, rattle, shake. He looks up, and lo and behold, Carl is in the box truck as well. Really good episode. Like, I was really happily surprised with this episode. It was just it flowed really well. The tone was somber when it needed to be. It was kind of funny when it needed to be. It gave some good screen time to some people that don't usually get it. I really, really enjoyed this episode. So out of 5 stolen scotches, I'm going to give this episode a 4.5 out of 5 stolen scotches. So that's it, guys. That's the review for this week. I hope you enjoyed this format. If not, let me know in the comments. You know, it just means that I'll have to get it to you a little later once I get, you know, back to the studio. If that's what you guys would prefer. If not, you know, this was fun. Little, you know, to-go review. So later on this week, I have a bonus Walking Dead video in mind. I'm gonna see what I could do. Hopefully that pans out. Not this week, maybe the week after, but, you know, we'll see how it goes. So that's it for me, guys. I will see you next time.